So I know shows like Euphoria are very polarizing. Some of us love it, and some of us just can't get with it whatsoever. For me, I actually enjoyed the first two seasons. The first season more so, especially, even given its flaws about character development, hyper focus on some characters at the expense of others. But I want to talk about the sole black character, main character in season one of Euphoria, which was Chris McKay. In particular, an episode that was focused around him called The Next Episode. And the next episode for me doesn't only shine a light on Chris McKay as a person, but it's a commentary on black American assimilation in this country and the things that we overlook or we grin and bear in an effort to appear successful to people who have been historically oppressive to us, and how that dynamic still shows up in modern times. Chris is in football practice with his father. And this is not just any football practice, it's the football practice workout before the actual football practice. So that should kind of give you some kind of image on what Chris is dealing with. A very hypercritical father, a father that places achievement beyond emotional wholeness and connection and just making sure that their kid is okay.
Let's go. Yeah. I am strong. You think you are. You are stronger.
I'd love to know who wrote this. I need to do my research, but I wonder who wrote it. This person of African American descent. And one of the interesting things about that scene is the voiceover that we hear is of Claude McKay reciting his speech, America. Well, it's not Claude McKay's voice, but it's definitely his words. And Claude McKay was a Jamaican immigrant who lived in Harlem during the Harlem Renaissance, and talked about all the things he had to give up in order to be seen as an American, not just a black American.
Although she feeds me bread of bitterness and sinks into my throat her tiger's tooth, stealing my breath of life, I will confess. I love this tortured hell that tests my youth.
However strong you think you are stronger.
The gist of the poem is, while I love the things that I've earned as an American, I am dismayed at the things I've had to give up. I am hurt by the unnecessary oppression that as a black person I've had to deal with to be in this country, and that I face still being in this country. And I think a lot of us can relate, even those of us who don't like to play the race card or focus on being a minority and the minority, even though we are the majority across the world. I think there is something to be said. I think that all people of all races give up pieces of themselves and sell off pieces of themselves in order to be stable in this capitalistic society. But black people especially, it's different with us. An example of this is when we get a flashback of Chris McKay as a young boy. He's playing football and this white opposing teammate whispers in his ear. Now, we have no idea what this kid said. It's never revealed. But whatever he said, it was mad enough for Chris to deck this guy in the face. Now, his father, the advice that he gives him is,
taking everything you feel, all your frustrations, your anger, your rage, you bottle it up. You take your position, and when that snap comes, you let it explode.
Use your anger to fuel your goals to being successful. And on one hand, I understand what his dad is saying. The world is always going to test you, especially as an upper middle class black kid. Like, those of us who grew up in the suburbs, we all have stories of off-color comments and weird feelings and uncomfortable situations where we weren't treated fairly, because there's always going to be some asshole that's going to try to keep you in your place. What the elder McKay knows, Frederick, Chris's father, knows that, yeah, you're going to get tested, but you have to transmute that energy for your own good. Now, while I agree with that, it can also go too far and have someone become someone that is not in touch with their emotions. And we see the manifestation of that later in the episode when Chris is with Cassie. We've already set the stage that Chris's father is very dominant, very achievement focused, and as Chris grows up, we see that this has also become part of his personality. He is part of the football team. He is dating one of the most beautiful girls in the school, which is a blonde white woman. He is part of the football team. He's one of the most popular kids. When he goes off to college, he's in a frat, a white frat. Now, I'm all about personal choice. You got to date and socialize with people you feel comfortable with. I certainly don't have a problem with it. I don't care. But I think it's interesting that Chris chooses is, like his father, very regimented and is about how can I get ahead. Now, despite the fact that Chris and Nate are friends, it's a very superficial relationship. We don't ever see these men have a heart to heart, like really like have a strong male bond. It's toxic. I mean, even to the point where Nate constantly points out what a slut Cassie is, and that in turn alters the way Chris treats his own girlfriend, the person that he probably should have more of an emotional connection with, rather than the superficial one with Nate.
Look, I'm gonna be honest with you, Cass. I feel like if we go to this party and you dress like that, I ain't gonna ever hear the end of it.
Going back to the frat, when we observe his interactions with his frat brothers, again, it never looks like Chris is having a good time. Chris's eyes dart to and fro, checking out the landscape, surveillancing everything, even telling Cassie to change her outfit because he's concerned about how his frat brothers will view his girlfriend. Again, Cassie's not a woman. She's not his partner. She's an accessory. She is a marker of his acceptability in mainstream America. So this is why I don't get emotionally involved about people's preferences, because I'm like, it's not like they're treating these women like gold either. And quite honestly, not being chosen can be a great thing. After the party, Cassie and Chris go back to have sex. And what happens next was completely out of left field. I did not expect it, and I was highly disturbed. Frat brothers, the same frat brothers who he's working so hard to get their approval from, break into his dorm room with a half-naked Cassie and either actually penetrate Chris or they mock penetrate Chris in front of his girlfriend. Now, I'm just gonna say I think some actual penetration happened, because Chris's, like, his reaction was not just one of embarrassment. This man was terrified, and rightfully so. And while I'm watching this ambush, all I can think of is, like, epigenetics and generational PTSD. It's giving very KKK night riders breaking into black people's home to terrorize, torture, and murder us. That's what it was giving in that moment, whether it was intentional or not. So after the boys leave, Cassie makes an attempt to connect with her boyfriend and get to know what he's feeling, try to process what just happened, and Chris is having none of that. And what happens next is the most robotic, unsexy, dispassionate sex I've ever seen on TV. It's mechanical to the point where he finishes on her back, and she is the one who has to clean it up. If that's not symbolism for you, I don't know what is. Chris doesn't deal with his feelings as much as he just forces it onto someone else and makes them deal with the ramifications. And not forced, because I know Chris didn't rape Cassie, but it wasn't loving either. Let's be real. So in turn, like, he uses the bruteness that these men have put on him, and now he's turned it on his girlfriend, which is sad. Which is just like what people do when they feel powerless. He's never going to check them white boys and say, what you did to me was disgusting. Fuck you and your frat. I'm leaving. But he will abuse Cassie. I will say this. I don't know what happened to Chris McKay, but I would like to, I personally don't hold out a ton of hope for him changing, but we all have the power to change. And I will say that I'm very happy to see more and more Black people choose our health, choose spirituality, choose a life of purpose over getting to the bag in a system that is constantly moving the goalpost on what it means to be successful and what one needs to do in order to gain success. If you don't believe me, they used to have free college in the 70s until Black people started enrolling, and now all of a sudden everyone's got to pay for college, and now we have a student loan crisis. Anything to someone else over. We all could be free, but no, racism. So anyways, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Have you seen this episode? If not, check it out. Let me know what you think. I will talk to you guys later. Bye.